today we're going to check out the importance of the input volume in your modeling unit. Recently I got an interesting question on my YouTube channel by one of you beautiful ladies, and she asked me if I could do a video about how I set up the input volume of the modeling unit. And that is very important, and it also goes together with the topic of something which I call pre-gain equalization. So it's basically EQing before you go into the amp. And yeah, these two things are worth that we will take a look at today. And for that purpose, I've opened up the editor of the Valeton GP200 here, because that is a unit which is very flexible. It's a budget modeling unit, not that flexible, of course, like the AxeFx, but I'll show you what I would do with these cheaper units that usually they don't come with that much possibilities to check your tone. So here is one patch which I opened, which is called DK5150. You can get my high gain preset packs. Please contact me on Facebook if you want to get them. So that is one patch from that preset pack, I think. Sounds like that. Let me turn off the delay. And it's quite saturated. It's basically here the 5150 amp model, the UK Modern here, stock cabinet, a little bit of equalization after the cap. Turn off the EQ, it sounds like this. So we will just keep the EQ now turned off. And we need a little more here then. So let's add that. So it sounds pretty much like the real 5150 to me. And it's boosted, of course, with the mighty OD9, TS9. Yeah, as you can see, these settings here, quite typical. Don't max the volume here for a reason. So these patches, which you get from my preset pack, they are all designed for these guitars, which are the Harley Benton Fusion stock. With Roswell pickups. These pickups, they have lots of highs, but they don't have that much output. At least if you set them that low like me. So they're maybe about... If I push the low E string on the 24th fret, the string is maybe, I think, 4 millimeters above the bridge pickup. So usually if I use this preset with another guitar with other pickups, so let's take this guitar, it's the Schecter Bench favorite guitar with EMG pickups. Sorry. It sounds okay, but still it got a lot more gain than with the other guitar. There's a lot more saturation. And of course these pickups, they sound different than the Roswells. So I'd say these EMGs, they are way more, well, people say they are more compressed, but I think the reason is they're more mid heavy and pushing, well, the mids, which leads to more saturation in your amp. As these passive Roswell pickups, they're more or less PIF style voice. They have a little bit more highs, maybe a little bit more lows, not so tight lows. So maybe they're not the best choice for pushing your amp. But these EMG pickups, they are maybe a better choice. Anyway, the result is a little bit more gain heavy. So what you can try usually is you could go here to the settings and lower the input level. That works. So that's basically reducing the level that's coming from the guitar. So I set it now to minus 9 dB. I would be fine with that. But of course, that's in the global settings. So usually it's maybe, well, if you would like to do this, use the same presets for different guitars, maybe this would be the way to go, but you're not that flexible here. Of course, you can also design different presets for different guitars. Then you would do it within the preset. So the first thing what I would try to do within a preset, if I leave the input untouched, which I usually do, is go to the first block here in the chain and maybe reduce the volume. Crank it. If you reduce it, well, then it's suddenly reducing the saturation. And I have to say, this setting here with the OD9, it works quite well. And the reason for that is the OD9 is already shaping the guitar signal very much. It's basically pushing the mids, or other people say maybe it's cutting the lows and the highs. That's a very common, very common tool to push your amp, and it's working especially nice with amps which sound a little bit scooped and flubbing the bass, like rectifiers, or also the maybe the 5150. If I choose another amp, for example here, maybe let's take my Powerball patch. And let's turn off the delay. Maybe you can hear that there's a lot of noise coming from the distortion stage, which is reduced by the gate. So turn off the gate now. Sounds a little bit, well, a little bit flubby at least. And let's compare it to the other guitar with way less output. So this guitar, that patch was designed much tighter. And as you could imagine, we could also try to reduce the input, the overall input level here. So, well, that's too much gain, at least for my taste. But it's not working that well. Because it's reducing the gain somehow, but not in the right place, I think, because it's reducing the overall gain. But it sounds still a little bit, flubby. So here, if we crank the gain, it sounds flubby as hell. If you reduce the gain, it sounds still flubby. but only in the bass frequencies, which is maybe something you don't like. So we need something more flexible. This just reducing the overall input signal doesn't do the job. So what you usually do is you can shape your guitar signal before it goes into the amp block. And we're doing this already here with the super distortion. The super distortion is, remember in the patch with the 5150 I used the TS9, which I said it's basically shaping the mids. That was working great. And you could do, just by raising the volume, you could do the trick and you don't get flubbiness in the bass or something. Here the super overdrive is pushing a wider frequency range. And that is some trick which I usually do. I'm choosing the right pedal for the right amp. And if I get to not enough saturation with these mid-focused pedals like the Tube Screamer or the 808, I'm choosing one which is pushing a wider range, wider frequency range. That is usually maybe the super overdrive or maybe the modified Tube Screamer, which are also available here. Here I choose the super overdrive. And also I push the gain here a little bit. So what we can do here, of course, is we can try to reduce the volume here. And it's working. It's working at least better than if we reduce the volume, the overall signal. So that would be my first try to reduce the volume just here in the first block. Of course, that doesn't work in every situation, and I don't know if I can find a patch where this doesn't work. Maybe let's try out this one here. Seems to work quite fine here too. Well, maybe what can we do? Let's try out the Soldado. Yeah, with the OD9 it's also working. Anyway, but the thing I wanted to show you is that you could also use an EQ in front of the amp to shape in your guitar tone. And that is the most flexible thing that you can do. You can use an EQ to boost your amp, but also you can use the EQ just to shape in your guitar signal. And if you have the possibility, I would always prefer this method, because it's just the most flexible way, and also you could just put the EQ block there if you got one for free, one left, and then switch it on if you use another guitar. So here we are with our very oversaturated tone. I hope you can hear it all in the video, because here to me it sounds quite nasty in the room, but not nasty, but it's just way it has too much gain for my taste. But I hope it translates also in the video. Anyway, so there you have it. And let's try out the EQ. So here we have a 5-band EQ. The thing is, usually if we reduce the volume here, we'll do maybe the same thing like if you reduce it in the input, global input menu. Okay. But you have to go way down here, which is a little bit surprising, but anyway, it does the job. But usually with an EQ you're way more flexible, and usually What you would like to do is maybe you would just remove the annoying things here. And these are, in this case, usually the bass frequencies, which tend to cause flubbiness, and also maybe the highs, presence frequencies, which tend to get scratchiness and a little bit of noise, artificial noise. So we can dial back these and start like that curve. Already we have way more clarity, I think, compared to this. But it's I'd say it's still a little bit too much distortion for my taste. So of course we can also reduce the overall volume in addition. And let's compare it again with the Fusion. So here you have a more or less crunch tone if you leave the EQ engaged. If you disengage it, you have the perfect high gain tone again. And that is the thing with the EMGs. The EMGs have a or are focusing on a more on the mid-range, more or less. It's maybe cutting off the lows and also cutting off the highs, but to compensate that, it has lots of low mids, and we could try to compensate that by reducing these lower mids here. And also pushing a little bit more of the high mids to make it sound a little bit more like the passive pickups, which have lots of punch, like the Simulantes. So if you push the 1.6K, of course you get more saturation, but you get more like a this nasally tone you get from a TH4. And we shouldn't do too much, because then we will get too much So that sounds pretty much like it should to me. Not exactly like with the other guitar, but still maybe got the similar amount of gain out of this amp. And that is basically the trick I wanted to show you. So with this EQ in front of your amp, you can adjust the signal of one guitar to make one guitar sound like maybe similar to another guitar. There's some tricks which I showed you in some videos about pre-gain equalization. Please check them out. But in short, usually if you push maybe the mids around the 800 Hertz, it would be a good starting point for most of the amps, because it's just the mids of the mids, I would call this region. And that is usually helping to push an amp, but without getting annoying in the lows or highs. So of course, if you have already too much, a signal which is too hard, like with this guitar, you have to reduce the overall volume and then maybe dial in these peak. Or you can just reduce the other faders, like I did now, and reduce the volume in addition if that is not enough. But usually I would somehow end up with some curve like this to push an amp. And if my goal would be like maybe make these pickups here sound a little bit more like, or this guitar sound a little bit more like a Les Paul, for example, then I would tend to dial in more lower mids. If I would like to let it be more strat-like, or even maybe like power strat-like with the Seymour Duncans, I would raise maybe these frequencies here, the 1.6K. Here it would be too much, so I have to reduce this. Seymour Duncans seems to have this honky, well, this peak here in this region. So you can do that also with the EQ trick. But that's basically what I do to compensate maybe different pickups or different guitars and use them within the same patch. I try to EQ the signal, and usually these frequencies here, I'd say in between the 400 Hz and maybe the 2K, they are the most important. You should focus on the other frequencies you should reduce, because usually they cause only unwanted things in the distorted signal. For example, also if you're dialing these frequencies completely out here, I don't know about this EQ here, but usually it should sound somehow at least decent. So maybe not completely, but it's still working. So you can be way more drastic here than with an EQ after the amp. Because here usually these frequencies you are dialing out here, they're coming back within the distortion stages. So that you have the 100 Hz after the amp again. So yeah. Another thing which is maybe a little bit easier is just to use different drive blocks here. But then you have to know the characteristics of these drive blocks. And as I said before, maybe these tube screamers, they are boosting some of the mids around the 750 Hz, especially the 808. But if you want to boost more, then maybe you could use the OD9 or also the modified tube screamer, which is not here. And if you would like to boost a little bit more of the lower mids, usually my choice is the full tone OCD. I don't know, where is it here? Is this the force? Maybe this one. And also you can play around, of course, with the tone knob here. But as you can see here, as this guitar has already lots of lower mids, maybe this pedal would not be the right choice. And yeah, over the time, maybe you will find out which pedals work perfect with every amp. So you can, if you get my preset pack, I'd recommend to check out these pedals which I'm using with which amp model. Now it's more or less I'm using the pushing a wider range with the Marshall-like amps, where I need more saturation out of the pedal, especially with the JCM800 and the Plexi. And I'm using the Tube Screamer, with just pushing the mids, usually with Rectos or the PVs. And with Soldano and the diesels, it's always they're quite cultivated in the tones, so they work with everything. But yeah, then I'm trying out. And also, of course, it may depend on your modeling unit how these pedals are modeled, which is working best. But yeah, if I don't come to good results with the pedal, I'm using the EQ and just dial in somehow of a this peak curve around the maybe 700 or 800 hertz. So yeah, that's it. I hope you could understand what I was talking about. And yeah, if you want to purchase my preset packs, I made them for all of these modelers, the Moers, the Hotone Ampero, Valeton, the NUX. Please contact me on Facebook or Messenger and subscribe to my channel. Hope to see you soon. Goodbye.